to This Old Tree, a show that features heritage trees and their human stories. You'll hear interviews with experts, historians, and regular folks to celebrate the myths and uncover the real tales. This Old Tree is sponsored by Schwartz Tree and Landscaping in Cranston, Rhode Island. Professional tree service, landscaping, and plant management. Visit schwartztreecare.com or call 401-941-4440. Now, here is your host, Doug Still.
You're listening to This Old Tree, the show about heritage trees and the human stories behind them. I'm Doug Still. Some trees we've met on this show are old, and then there's Sotsastru. Sotsastru is the name locals call a 4,000-year-old olive tree near Luras, Sardinia, off the west coast of Italy. It is one of dozens of ancient wild olive trees still thriving in groves around the island, and perhaps the oldest throughout the Mediterranean. It was a sapling about 1,500 years before the Parthenon was built on the Acropolis of Athens, and 2,000 years before the Colosseum in Rome. How could this tree survive for so long? What civilizations has it seen come and go? Who has sat beneath it? To find out, I toured Sardinia with my traveling companion Ed Nardell this past April. I spoke with Anna Maria Corda, tour guide and spokesperson for Sotsastru, which is now a promoted tourist attraction. I also met with 4 agronomists from Agris, the regional agricultural research agency of Sardinia, whose mission, in part, is to protect and enhance oliviculture, the practice of growing olives. We visited the site of a devastating wildfire that destroyed another 1,000-year-old olive tree, a tragedy that kicked off an effort to preserve the genetic heritage of wild olives. As drought and destructive wildfires become more common with climate change, will the ancient olive trees of Sardinia continue to survive? Come along with me to learn about the fantastic Sotsastru in the ancient olive trees of Sardinia. I'm Doug Still, and this is This Old Tree.
This old tree, standing here for more than 4 centuries. Wonder what you'd say if you could talk to me about what it's like to be this old tree.
Ed and I rented a car in Cagliari, the charming capital city on the southeast coast of Sardinia, and headed north. It was hard to contain my excitement. We were on our way to see one of the oldest trees in the world. In order to get there, the highway took us inland, away from the coastal resorts and renowned beaches with clear aquamarine water that most visitors to the island come for. It got rural fast as we drove through rolling fields of green and yellow. After a few hours, we found ourselves heading up steep, craggy mountains. The road narrowed and began to snake in an endless series of curves, up one mountainside and down the next. Every turn brought stunning views across forested valleys. Higher elevations caused the trees to disperse into groupings, surrounded by grassland with wildflowers in full bloom. Rocky outcrops capped each mountain, although cliff drop-offs could occur anywhere, traversed by narrow bridges. Periodically, a small town would come into view across the valley, its clustered houses in pastel hues clinging to the side of a mountain. It was incredibly picturesque. Within 10 minutes, the road would wind its way through the very same town we'd seen from a distance, usually a single, narrow horizontal street edged with the old buildings. Driving often required slow, coordinated maneuvering with oncoming cars and strolling townspeople. Even smaller streets ascended steeply off the main street to one side and descended precipitously down the other. There were many towns like this. They felt truly authentic, unspoiled by tourism. We could have been peering back through time. We learned that most of the people who lived there, those who hadn't moved away that is, had lived in their community their whole lives, their ancestors extending back generations. We stayed one night in a town called Seulo, famous for having the highest concentration of centenarians in the world outside of Okinawa, Japan. This is one of the world's blue zones, characterized by low rates of chronic disease and a lifestyle that promotes long lives. Some credit Sardinian longevity to the red wine they drink, called Cannonau. Maybe some of its powers will rub off on me. I had a glass or more every night with dinner. As a prelude to visiting the famous olive tree, I was beginning to get a sense of the island's dreamy, unchanging nature. We made our way to Luras in the north, where Sotsastru is located. It is a rural commune that contains the stunning Lake Lisha, set among craggy mountains. Purple thistle and rosemary were blooming along the roadside next to yellow Scotch broom. We drove through groves of olive trees, holly oak, myrtle, and cork oak. It turns out this area is a major producer of cork used by Italy's wine industry. We visited a museum that described how cork has been harvested over the centuries. Many of these oak trees were stripped of old bark up to about 10 feet in height or more, but we learned that new bark was growing in a continual, time-tested process that didn't harm the trees. We arrived at Olivastri Millenari di Luras, directly translated as the millennial olive trees of Luras. It is a sanctuary that cares for a grove of 1,000-year-old trees and regulates guided tours. A group of bikers dressed in leather was just leaving. Otherwise, there was no one else to be seen. We walked up a hill to the bar that served as a small visitor center to buy tickets. It overlooks a sweeping view of the lake. I was scheduled to meet with an experienced tour guide named Anna Maria Corda, who speaks fluent English, but she was down in the grove with a group of local school children. We ordered a cappuccino as we waited for her, but then I heard the sound of bells. I stepped around back and peered over a fence to see a flock of sheep in a sunny field, herded by a few dogs. The sheep were wearing the bells. I didn't know it yet, but a clue to Sotsastru's secret of longevity was grazing in front of me about 30 yards away. Eventually, Anna Maria came back, and we were surrounded by school children, which was great fun. We met over the din, and as we headed down to the grove, we started chatting. How do you pronounce your name?
My name is Anna Maria.
Carta.
Anna Maria Corda.
Corda.
Yes, Corda.
This tree is called Sotsastru.
Sotsastru. Yes, it's Sardinian to say the wild olive tree. Because for us, it is, the only one. It's like it is the only one. Ozzastro with a big O.
I see.
It's our tree. We consider it our tree.
Is it sometimes called the Great Patriarch?
Yeah, exactly. It was called the Great Patriarch, when he was when they started considering as a natural monument. So in 1991, about. But for us, it's always our Ozzastro, our olivastro in Italian, wild olive tree.
We walked through a rustic gate and down a sloped path of wooden planks, and immediately it was there, directly before us. It appeared to hold court in the landscape, a strong presence that, on first impression, inspired reverence rather than awe. From where we stood, it was more like a large mound of light green vegetation than a tree, its horizontal branches spreading wide and sweeping to the ground. The tree's canopy is about 45 feet tall and 75 feet wide, a picture of health. It sat in a meadow and was surrounded by a wooden rail fence placed outside the drip line, so you couldn't walk underneath it. The fence protected the roots from likely thousands of visitors eager to touch the trunk. And this is a national monument.
Yeah, yes, it's a national monument, national natural monument. So it's been, it's safeguarded since then. Mm-hmm.
A national list of monumental trees has been kept by the Ministry of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry Policies in Rome since a ministerial decree was announced in 2013. Local municipalities and regions throughout Italy are tasked with inventorying trees and submitting potential candidates for consideration as monumental trees. Criteria to be considered are longevity, size, rarity, and cultural value. Local authorities are also responsible for protecting these recognized trees. The unauthorized damage or killing of a monumental tree is against the law, with steep fines of up to €100,000. Who's the owner of the property? Who manages the property?
The property is managed now by a society who is in charge to, protect him, to make the visit, to guide the visits to this tree, and to explain the history and the place where it is, and give some, some curiosities, some information about it, because it's not only history, it's also legends sometimes that people say, people say a lot of things.
Absolutely.
And I work with a few guys and people from Luras. We all are from Luras, the people who work here, and so we know this big tree since we were kids.
Wonderful. And you're an English teacher, a local English teacher.
Yeah, I'm also an English teacher and a translator. Well, I've translated some books, also, some novels.
Wonderful.
Yeah. But I like to work as a guide here.
Is Sottsastru's the oldest olive tree in Sardinia?
Yes. Actually, it's the oldest wild olive tree in Italy. In Italy is also the oldest tree in general. It's the oldest
of all
in
the
all
trees
Italy.
in Italy.
Yes.
And is it the oldest olive tree in the Mediterranean?
It's the oldest olive tree in all Europe and in the Mediterranean. Yeah, the wild olive tree.
Anna Maria made the important distinction between the wild olive trees growing in Luras and the cultivated olive tree, whose origins, according to the International Olive Council, have been lost in time. Theories abound, but both types are ancient. The Phoenicians disseminated the cultivated olive throughout the Mediterranean during the 2nd millennia BC, including Sardinia most likely. Evidence of the wild olive dates thousands of years before that. The Latin names are confusing even to me, but I looked it up and I'll give it a shot. The species is Olea europea, which is divided into 6 subspecies. The subspecies in question here is also called europea, so Olea europea subspecies europea. It, in turn, is divided into 2 varieties. The first variety is, you guessed it, europea, which is the cultivated olive. So, Olea europea subspecies europea variety europea. You've got to be kidding me. It used to be called Olea sativa, but botanists changed the name based on good reasons, I'm assuming. The variety for the wild olive is sylvestris, so it is Olea europea subspecies europea variety sylvestris. If I got this wrong, let's start a thread for sticklers on social media. The point is that Anna Maria claims Sottsastru's is the oldest wild olive. Other claims for having the world's oldest olive tree, like in Crete or elsewhere, are dealing with a different variety. It's apples and oranges.
We have some information. I know there should be some common olive tree in the Mediterranean. I guess it's the territory, maybe Israel, Palestine.
Israel.
There. Yeah, but it's a common olive tree. It's not wild. It's not like this one that grew spontaneously here.
I see. In Sardinia, olive trees are a deep part of the culture. Like the visiting school group we met earlier, children are taught about olives from a very young age. So the difference between the wild olive tree and the cultivated olive, or common olive as Anna Maria called it, is very clear, including where they grow on the island.
Here and in Sardinia we have a lot of wild olive pure olea.
Right.
Actually, in this area, in this part of Sardinia, we don't cultivate common olive trees. It's not the right climate or the right conditions. In Sardinia, you find cultivation of olive trees in other areas like Alghero area or Ogliastra. The same name says Olio. Ogliastra, it's a place where there are a lot of cultivations of oil and everything. And you see the difference. When you see it from a bit far, it looks like a big bush because the branches didn't...
All the way to the ground.
Yeah, exactly. So the common olive tree grows in 8, and also the branches go up.
Up and out, like a V.
Yeah, up and out. This one, the wild olive tree, grows like a bush. So the branches grow horizontally and down. So, well...
The overall habit, I can see around us, they're round. Does it produce olives?
It still produces olives, but they are very, very small. Very small.
Are they tasty?
Actually, they are bitter. They
Bitter.
are very bitter.
Even after curing them?
No, it's not.
Not so good.
Someone has tried to produce oil or to put it, under salt, the pickles from pickle olives, but. Maybe they are not so suitable to be eaten. Also, you can eat them. Maybe someone likes them,
but not you.
No, actually, they are very bitter. Also, since they are so small, a great quantity is needed to produce oil. So it would cost a lot. And, if you would like to purchase some oil, it would be very expensive, I guess, because for this reason.
And you already have so much great olive oil in Sardinia.
Yeah, exactly.
Why bother with
so
that?
maybe
bitter and small.
Yeah, maybe that is the reason. In Sardinia, we have great olive oil, so we don't. Maybe if we needed it, so if we had the olive oil, maybe we would have used it. Another difference with the common olive tree are besides the olives and the way it grows, there are also the leaves. They are very small. They are smaller than the common olive tree, and they are different colors. And also you will see the branches, the twigs that are knotty, very knotty.
That's knotty, Knotty, not the other kind of knotty. We walked up as close to the tree as possible without hopping the fence and peered into an opening in the canopy to see the trunk. It was unbelievable, and knotty only begins to describe it. How about gnarled, contorted, pulsing, scarred, hollowed? If I were to describe it in anthropomorphic terms, I would use the words elderly, wise, weary, grounded, wrinkled, alive, and indomitable. Here and there, dead branches fell out of the center, their dry tips leaning on the ground. But most notably, the trunk is very, very thick. The trunk is over 3.5 meters, or 11 feet in diameter at breast height, and then widens out at ground level to a whopping 6 meters, or 18 feet in diameter. You can feel the mass of it all. Its surface alternates between live wood and decay, a tangle of life and death. The trunk's edges and hollows undulate in and out, making it hard to discern the tree's actual shape. How could someone possibly determine how old it is? How have experts been able to estimate its age?
Yeah, that's one of the most asked questions.
With that question hanging, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, you'll hear Anna Marie's answer. We'll also get into how Sotsastru has lived for so long. The answer is more than just biological. You're listening to This Old Tree. I'm excited to share some big news. This Old Tree is now a sponsored project of the New England chapter of the International Society of Arboriculture. This partnership is a natural fit as both the podcast and New England ISA share the same mission to celebrate and advocate for trees that shape our communities and history, as well as the people who care for them. If you love the show, you can now make a tax-deductible gift to help us continue bringing you inspiring features about heritage trees and the human stories behind them. Your support is needed to make this possible. New England ISA is a nonprofit organization dedicated to advancing professional arboriculture, research, and awareness of the benefits of trees. Your gift will support the production of This Old Tree and New England ISA at the same time. Visit newenglandisa.org to find out how you can help. The link can be found in the show notes. Thank you to all the faithful listeners of this show, and thank you to New England ISA for helping This Old Tree grow. Now, back to the show. Hi, I'm Doug Still, and we're back with This Old Tree.
That's one of the most asked questions because, of course, we could not, cut the trunk and count the famous rings.
Absolutely not.
That is the science is called dendrochronology. Dendrochronology and.
Coring the trunk to count the annual rings was not an option because it might damage the historic tree. Besides, it wouldn't work even if researchers wanted to do that due to the trunk's irregular shape filled with hollows. So how did they do it?
They established it actually by a comparison. In this area, that is Carana. Carana is the place, this country, this area. There are a lot of wild olive tree, also old wild olive tree, like century-year-old, and they were already maybe sick or dying. So they made studies upon those trees, so they couldn't damage them.
And they could count those rings and compare the size.
Yeah, they found out that this type of tree grows very slowly, very, very slowly, only 2 millimeters per year in the first 20 years of life. So it's
very slow.
It's already slow, but it grows even slower as time goes by, so up to half a millimeter per year.
Is that how it's able to survive so long? Slow growth, slow metabolism, so to speak?
Yeah, I guess. It could be one of the reasons also, because, as rings are so small, are so thin, maybe the trunk, became thicker, stronger. It could be one of the reasons why. Actually, they're still studying it. I guess that there is a big amount of luck, a great amount of luck to be so old or to have resisted all, calamities or parasites and everything.
Right. Or just agriculture.
Yeah.
In the area, nobody ever cut the tree down or took over the spot.
But, since it is about 4,000 years old, 4,000 years old means it is about the age of the pyramids, about. So we had Nuragic culture here in those periods. So it means that, for Christians, when Christ was born in the year 0 year, it was already old.
Already 2,000 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
Anna Maria mentioned Nuragic culture. And so what does that mean? It refers to the mysterious Bronze Age civilization that inhabited Sardinia for about 1,500 years prior to Roman arrival, but possibly longer. Evidence for the Nuragi people dates back to about 1800 BC, although their emergence is not totally clear. Coincidentally, this is about the same time Sotsastru was a young, slow-growing sapling. The Nuragi left no writing or records of any sort, although various Greek and Roman authors describe them in a way some say is more mythic than historical. We know very little about them, except for found artifacts like bronze figurines and pottery. What we also have, and any visitor to Sardinia can tell you, are numerous stone tower-like monuments spread across the island. Thousands of them, as a matter of fact. These rustic structures are also called nuraghi, and over 7,000 of them can be found standing on a lone ridge here or a mountaintop there. Some are extensive and require admission and a tour guide to enter, while others are just standing on their own, randomly waiting to be discovered on a hike. It's amazing that these incredibly old monuments still stand after all this time. Like Ed said, traveling through Sardinia is akin to stepping back into the Bronze Age. Sardinia is not just a blue zone for human longevity. Add to the list these wonderful nuraghi and, oh yes, the wild olive trees.
So maybe the old inhabitants of the area, we imagine that it was worshipped as a great plant, a big plant. I guess it could be an hypothesis because they were, the old inhabitants had natural religions. It was not where they worshipped nature. So
right.
A big tree like this, I guess it
sort of like a holy tree.
Yeah, like a holy tree. Yeah. I don't know. We actually don't have much monument like nuraghis, much nuragic rests here. Maybe they were destroyed in the course of the year. But well, it's just an hypothesis. Nuragic or other people who lived here.
Due to its key position in the Western Mediterranean, Sardinia saw many, many foreign invaders come and go, each group leaving their mark. Here's a simplistic lightning round rundown. Prior to 1800 BC, there were Stone Age peoples that we know even less about than Nuragic civilization. But when the Nuraghi appeared, they thrived throughout the island for nearly 900 years until the Phoenicians made landfall sometime in the 9th or 8th century BC. The Phoenicians were seafaring people originally emanating from current-day Lebanon. They were traders who explored the Mediterranean and created settlements, mostly peacefully. For the most part, they did not fight with the Nuraghi they encountered, but mixed with them genetically and culturally. The Phoenician period led to more trade with the outside world and more interest from foreigners. The Greeks settled for a short time, but left after 60 years. The warlike Carthaginians, ancestrally related to the Phoenicians, took hold of southern Sardinia in 535 BC as they began to expand across the region from current-day Libya. They fought with the Nuraghi, but were not successful in taking the inner mountainous areas or the northern part of the island. The Carthaginians were eventually repulsed in 238 BC by the Romans during the First Punic War. Hence the arrival of the Romans. The Romans stayed for nearly 600 years, building coastal towns, roads, and other infrastructure. The southwestern town of Tharos is one example. It overlooks the sea on a beautiful peninsula. It is just stunning. Like the Carthaginians, the Romans kept mainly to the coast and were not able to adequately tame the wild tribes of the inner mountains. Their main interests were trading, fishing, and farming in the low plains. They had fits trying to control the desolate mountains that were home to scrappy natives. After Rome fell, there was a brief invasion by the Vandals, but then the island became part of the Byzantine Empire. In the 8th century AD, there was a series of coastal Arab-led invasions, more like pirate raids than a full occupation. They were expelled in the Middle Ages by armies controlled by rulers in Pisa and Genoa. The island was divided into 4 entities known as judicates. Sozastros stood in the judicate of Gallura. The region is called Gallura to this day. The Aragonese from Spain touched down in northwestern Sardinia to rule the region where the city of Sassari is. Spanish influence can still be felt there, a proud part of their heritage. Eventually, the whole island was incorporated into Italy during its unification in 1861, led in part by Giuseppe Garibaldi, the famous general and revolutionary. Garibaldi absolutely loved Sardinia. He had a country house on the island of Caprera. The house is now a museum. Like him, the rich and famous inhabit today's coastal Sardinia. The area is invaded by hordes of tourists, especially mainland Italians. They revel in summer resort towns in order to soak up the sun, drink Sardinian vermentino and mirto, and bathe in the crystal clear water. By now, one thing might be obvious to you. Since ancient times, there has been a marked difference in culture and way of life between Sardinia's more worldly coastal communities and the interior mountains and rural countryside. There, little changes from year to year, century to century, and perhaps from one millennium to the next. This is where Sottosastro lives.
Yeah. One of the reasons why it grew so old, it could be also the place where it grew, where it was born.
Why is
it's
this
a valley.
Place special for growing old olive trees?
I guess this he found the right habitat. Maybe because we don't have only this one that is 1,000-year-old tree, but also another tree that is 2,500 years old.
Right, and we're not giving that one any attention.
No, actually, well,
you do.
Actually, also because, well, it is protected. This is a kind of a valley. You know, there's a hill that protects it, and it's kind of a valley.
Sheltered.
So maybe it's sheltered. It was sheltered by everything.
And we're on the south side of this mountain.
Yeah.
I can tell from the sun.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you're better than me.
And if the landscape has been a factor in the olive tree's long-term survival, then, by extension, so have the people who have made use of it and fended off change since time immemorial. Not anyone rich or famous, I discovered, but people who could be considered the heart and soul of Sardinia. Shepherds. Do you know of famous historical people that have visited this tree? Any stories?
Actually, this tree, any stories? Well, the stories are mostly legends about, the animals who maybe would found shelter under under the tree. Also, we had a lot of shepherds. Here, it's a place where shepherds have lived for centuries. So they brought their sheep, their flocks to stay here. And also, there's a sign of fire in the trunk. And maybe in one of those, cold evenings, cold nights in winter, maybe some shepherds also tried to lit fire. Yeah, to lit fire. Mm-mm.
Archaeological evidence suggests that sheep have been on the island for at least 6,000 years. Domesticated sheep farming is deeply ingrained in Sardinian culture. The image of the shepherd guiding his flock around ancient ruins in the windswept landscape is at the same time mythic and still an everyday occurrence. While driving one day in the countryside, we had to stop our car to allow a massive group of sheep pass by. Among the flock were tiny lambs that were adorable as they struggled to keep up with their ambling elders. They were guided by several young men who nodded to us as we watched out the car window. They were modern-day shepherds. Sottosastro's own shepherd story made me search high and low for folk legends about them, but they're difficult for an English-speaking person to find. I did find a novel called Elias Portolu, written in 1903 by a Sardinian author named Grazia de Leda. She is famous in Italy, but relatively passed over elsewhere. In fact, she's the only Italian woman ever to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. The novel was translated by American Kevin Hauser, who gave me permission to read a passage from the book. Elias Portolu is the name of the main character, a shepherd who has tragically fallen in love with his brother's fiancée. His turmoil and inner dialogue is expressed while he is out in the desolate, dramatic landscape tending to his duties. There's a Sardinian word you should know, which is tanca, T-A-N-C-A. Kevin Hauser defines a tanca as a large holding of land, some of it cleared, some in a natural state, with woods, streams, boulders, and other elements, surrounded by a low wall for agricultural purposes like grazing sheep. Here's a taste of the passage in Italian and then in English.
Ecco, ora Elias è finalmente nella sconfinata solitudine della tanca, animata solo da qualche grido, da qualche fischio di pastore e dal tintinnio del gregge. Now Elias was finally back in the boundless solitude of the tanka, where the only signs of life were the cries and whistles of a shepherd, the tinkling bells of sheep, and the bellowing of bulbs. Thick woods of cork-oak trees silhouetted the horizon, framing the serene backdrop of the sky. The Portulus Tanka had been mostly cleared of trees a year earlier, and now stretched out in the vast open sunbeaten expanse. Only the occasional cork tree rose up here and then amidst the green grasses, shrubs, and brambles. Tender, delicate vegetation scented with mint and thyme grazed the damp expanses. Only under the trees and in damp stretches did the grass remain green and cool. Although flat and unwooded, the tanka has secret recesses, rocks, and bushes. At night, the scent of the Russian mint was almost irritating. The Portolus reasonably large rock pastured in the tanka. The sheep were plump with their long, thick fleece. Elias felt physically well in the solitary and primitively beautiful place where he'd grown up, where he spent his early childhood. Day after day, he revisited and became reacquainted with every nook and cranny of the tanka. Meanwhile, perched and moving on his rock, eyes glassy, Elias started as if captivated by the moon's sheer splendor, immersed in nebulous vision. It was the same bewilderment, buzzing and vague dizziness he'd felt that first night of his return in the little courtyard at home. The soft breeze rustling in the woods far away sounded to him like an indistinct voice, sweet one moment, frightening the next. What was it saying? What was the wind saying? What was the forest whispering?
Elias sought answers about what to do about his secret passion from the primal voices of his natural world. You'll have to read the book to find out how he emerges from his dilemma. But, in a general sense, shepherds are emblematic of that part of Sardinia that remains timeless. Tankas have been passed down from generation to generation. Anna Maria informed me that Sotsastru and its companion wild olive trees stand in a tanka as well, although this one is now owned by the local municipality. The trees have given shelter to shepherds who fiercely protect the landscape and their way of life. In turn, Sotsastru has been protected too. Time for another short break. When we return, the question is, will the ancient wild olives survive a new, more insidious threat, the effects of climate change? You're listening to This Old Tree. Hello, I'm Doug Still, the host of This Old Tree, and I'd like to talk to you about Schwartz Tree Care. I've known owner Dave Schwartz for nearly 2 decades, and he understands how important your trees are to you and your property. He has 52 years of experience in tree work, and the crews at Schwartz Tree Care are trained to the highest professional standards. Schwartz specializes in natural pruning, but they offer all manner of tree and shrub care, including pest management, fertilization, landscape design, and installation. Every property has its strengths and weaknesses, and with this in mind, Dave works with you to develop a viable management strategy. They make your property look like it has never been touched. Natural, gorgeous, and sustainable. Arrange for a free estimate by visiting schwartztreecare.com or call 401-941-4440. Schwartz Tree Care. Get the best for your property. Hi, I'm Doug Still, and we're back with This Old Tree. going to ask you, have there been any fires through here, low-level ground fires? And how does the ground, the field around the trees stay open?
There haven't been fires here. Not to my memory, nor to memories of people who live here. So I guess I don't know why. How can it be possible? Because Sardinia every year has a lot of problems with fires, but has had in the centuries. So maybe I guess a bit of luck. It's.
Well, Sotsastru and the millennial olive trees of Luras may have been lucky, but the summer of 2021 was not so lucky for a 1,000-year-old olive tree on the west coast of the island. A dramatic wildfire broke out in the Monteferru area of Oristano province, forcing inhabitants of the towns of Cagliari and Scano di Monteferru to flee their homes. 7,500 people from across Sardinia were employed to extinguish the fires, bolstered by planes and helicopters. Over 20,000 hectares burned, causing extensive damage. One of the biggest apparent losses was the millennial olive tree of Satankamana, a symbol of nearby Cagliari. We decided to visit the site of the fire, and we were joined by 3 agronomists from Agris, the agricultural research agency of Sardinia. Their names were Marco Campus, Fabio Pires, and Gianluigi Pili. Marco did the interpreting for us. Their jobs as researchers are to provide science and technological innovation to support farming and forestry sectors. In particular, they are experts on oliviculture. They were kind enough to show us where the famous olive tree stood and talk about what happened. Despite the talk of drought and fires, it was absolutely pouring when we met. The sound you hear is the rain on the umbrellas we squeezed under. We are at the Olivastro di Tancamana, the olive tree of Tancamana, and I am with, could you state your names?
Yeah, Marco Campus from Agris, Sardinia.
Fabio Piras, Agris, Sardinia. Gianluigi Pili, Agris, Sardinia.
Thank you so much for taking us out here today. And unfortunately, we are standing next to a burned tree. And you had said that this tree was becoming a tourist attraction?
Yeah. The municipality of Cagliari was trying to use it as a tourism attraction because of the importance of this specimen. It was one of the largest in Sardinia and one of the most visited sites here. It was a topos in Latin, an important location.
How old do you estimate this tree is?
Because of the hollow trunk, it's not easy to estimate the actual age because you can count the rings, the grown rings. But the circumference was about 10 meters, so it was 16 meters high. Yeah.
So about how many?
Do you have an estimate?
800.
Too hard.
1,000 years old, maybe.
Millenario lo chiamavano.
Yeah, millennial, yeah. 1,000-year-old, maybe. Unfortunately, in 2021, there was a huge fire that destroyed 13,000 hectares, most of olive orchards, and unfortunately, the Olivastro di Tancamana was lost in this fire.
Incredible. It must have been a gorgeous tree because we can see the remnants of the large branches that fell in a circle all around the center of it. And I will share pictures of it on Instagram.
Yeah, you can see the original tree where it was in its full glory.
How did the fire start? Do we know?
Yeah, the fire started a week before the main fire. It was a fire that was extinguished, but not completely, so the fire restarted. Da dove è partito l'elicottero? Da quale comune? Il
Santo Lussurgio.
They started from Santo Lussurgio,
And all of these fields must have been on fire. Was it in the summer?
Yeah, in August started.
August?
August.
Conditions were dry?
No, July. July 2021.
July. Conditions were dry and hot?
Were dry, hot, yeah.
According to many different climate models, the Mediterranean is considered a climate change hotspot. A researcher at MIT says the region will experience the greatest decline of projected rainfall of any landmass on Earth. Temperatures have already risen 1.6 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels, and a rise of 2 to 3 degrees Celsius is predicted by the year 2050. This will mean more extremes in storm-related precipitation, as well as the increase of frequency and intensity of drought. The summer of 2021 saw a heat wave that was particularly bad, with record-breaking temperatures in Italy and Spain. Dry conditions caused numerous wildfires, particularly in Italy, Greece, and Turkey. Over 800,000 hectares burned that summer around the Mediterranean, equivalent to 2 million acres or 3,000 square miles. The Monteferru fires were no anomaly. Sardinia was primed for an outbreak.
Yeah. And there was also strong wind, so it propagated very quickly, and in 4-5 giorni, 4 or 5 days, all the damage was done.
Was there life loss?
No, life, no, non sono morti senz'altro. No. Fortunately, no life loss. Animals, of course, olive orchards, and also vineyards, and also forest trees. And also, the fire reached near the municipality of Cagliari, and some houses were burned or severely damaged.
Were fires common in Sardinia in the past, historically?
Yeah, almost every year we have problems with, mainly human.
Questo incendio è partito da un'auto praticamente parcheggiata a bordo strada.
Ah, okay. This particular fire started maybe from a car that was parked, and the exhaustion was very hot, and so the straw burnt. And
Are olive trees resistant to fire?
Not all. Olives is quite resistant, but in particular ancient specimens, because of the hollow trunk, it's very dry, so they burn easily. So much wide is the tree, and easily it burns.
So there are spaces for the fire to get into the center of the tree where it's dry and old, and it can.
No, it's a natural consequence of the growth of the olive. When olive becomes very old, the peripheral parts of the plants survive, and it grows bigger and bigger. But the center remains decayed and dry, so it burns easily.
Le uniche parti che si sono salvate sono esterne di questo tronco, perché all'interno era tutto legno morto.
As you can see, the external parts are all quite not damaged, but the inside of the trunk was all burned.
Right. It's like a shell.
That
That
it's like
remains.
a shell. Yeah.
So what's being done to save this tree?
To save the tree, they put a lot of water. They maybe save the plant because some sprouts grow from the ground, and
You checked for sprouts and protected them if you saw them.
They protect them from weather, from other agents that could potentially damage it.
Because the root system is still alive.
The roots are still alive, yeah, of course, yes.
I've grown a lot of trees from stump sprouts.
No.
And they grow fast, actually, once they get going.
Because the direct connection with the roots. So.
Right. Are extensive, and it's control of that water.
You can see the dimensions of the higher part of the tree. Maybe there is the correspondent in roots.
After the fire, botanists from the University of Cagliari looked closely at the remains of Olivastro di Tancamana and discovered there was still photosynthetic activity below the bark of the stump remains. Botanists from the University of Sassari also got involved, along with volunteers from local villages and the researchers from Agris. A series of measures were taken, including installing drip irrigation, mulch, and shading for the tender new shoots. They are also highly protected with wire fencing. Once signs of life appeared in earnest, they shared the good news with the public. In addition, the various organizations coalesced into a group called the Monteferro Association. Its goal is to support local farmers, restore the olive groves, raise money, and publicize the effort.
There are two projects going on. One is Olivastri Secolari, the catalog and the maintenance of ancient trees. And the other is Monteferro, that is the recovery of local germplasm, propagation through grazing, and reimplantation. Yeah, it's an initiative from the government of Sardinia, and its main aim was to propagate the local germplasm, to make plants fundamentally by grazing, and give these plants to the growers so they can replace the trees they've lost during the fire.
Very nice. The project Olivastri Secolari, which means ancient olive trees, blends botany and archaeology to study the history of both millennial cultivated and wild olive trees, including Sotsastru and the trees in Luras. More on their work in a bit. But the Monteferro Association is largely involved, of course, with the Progetto di Olivi Monteferro. Marco described it as a way to preserve the germplasm of local olive trees in the Monteferro region. In other words, they aim to perpetuate the genetic legacy of local olive varieties in the wake of this fire and in preparation for future fires. They carefully track and propagate local varieties through grafting and then distribute young trees to farmers. These free tree giveaways kicked off in 2025, and farmers had to apply. Agris provides technical and administrative support in addition to managing several long-term studies. The new groves will be developed for the production of extra virgin olive oil and/or table olives.
How is the market for olives in Sardinia now?
It's a small market, but we produce very high quality extra virgin olive oils. You know, the main producer in the Mediterranean basin is Spain, but the quality is not quite the same.
Better here.
Let's say it's easier to make quality when you have small quantities, because you can take care of every aspect of the processing. So we can plan all the phases and produce very high quality. And we are producing very high quality. They took prizes all over the world.
Marco, Fabio, and Gianluigi wanted to show us their tree nursery and local office, so we decided to get out of the rain and head to their facility in Oristano. There, we met Emanuele Colli, the horticulturalist who manages the nursery. He brought us inside a giant covered staging area with row upon row of baby olive trees growing in small containers. Some were wild olives. Others were cultivated olives, separated by variety, many of them grafted onto the rootstock of wild olives to create trees more resilient to drought and diseases. It was really cool to be surrounded by all of these olive trees and see the results of their hard work. We then sat down in the office to talk more about olive tree research.
L'olivo selvatico, the wild olive in Sardinia, is ancient presence, giusto?
Sì.
È una presenza molto molto antica. La Sardegna oggi è uno dei luoghi al mondo dove più di tutti è presente l'olivo selvatico.
Manuel is saying that olive is an ancient presence in Sardinia, and as Fabio said, archaeological evidences date the present back at least 10,000 years, maybe. Starting from the wild variety, man has made a selection of the most favorable traits, larger fruits, resistant trees, and so the domestication happened. Specifically, the domestication of olive is polycentric. It means that it happened in different locations simultaneously. Mm-hmm. So maybe some varieties specific of Sardinia were selected in loco.
Question for Fabio. There was an article, a paper you published with other co-authors recently about archaeological investigation in Sardinia where you found and identified ancient fruit stones from olives. Could you describe that study and what some of your findings were?
Sono stati fatti dei lavori soprattutto dall'Università di Cagliari in collaborazione con noi.
This work deals with some findings in archaeological sites that where archaeologists found ancient olive seeds, and this material was interesting because of the ancient origin. So Agris with University of Cagliari carried out researches on this to find out if there were proximities with known varieties, for example.
Sì. Sono stati messi a confronto questi archeosemi con semi di varietà attuali.
Using image analysis techniques, they put together the morphological data coming from this material and known varieties in order to find if there were correlations between this ancient material and also from an ethnological point of view, but also for the historical studies about the domestication of olive.
And what was the period that you were studying of time?
Di che epoca erano?
Periodo nuragico.
Nuragic period. How many varieties of olive trees do you think there are in the world?
I think there are known. A line of research which is carried out specifically by Gianluigi. We are trying to select varieties that spontaneously have grown in the wild. There are potentially new varieties because of this crossing between or variety per variety or variety per wild types. All the genetical work is still to be done.
They should name it after you.
Yes.
You get the name.
Gianluigi is the first variety that will be certified. The fact that these varieties have been selected by nature is very interesting because potentially they incorporate genes that are very interesting in the matter of climate change, also in future scenarios of diseases or pests.
As natives of the island, can you all tell the difference between olive oil made from the different varieties or the wild olive and the grown? And how does
from our study, we can say that the same variety grown in different areas give a different oil. This is because obviously different soil characteristics, different climate, different rainfall. All these characteristics, microclimate, give a different soil. In Montefiore there are mainly three varieties cultivated. There are the Bosana, the most widespread in all Sardinia, that give a very strong olive with very spicy, very bitter. Another variety is the Semidana, which gives a more equilibrated oil. And another variety that is used both for oil or for table olives, that is Manna, it has different names depending on the site where it is cultivated.
In addition to Bosana, Samidana, and Manca, which I believe refers to the producer Domenico Manca that has won multiple awards at the World Olive Oil Competition, Fabio and Gianluigi stated their favorite variety is Nera di Villa Cidro, which they described as fruity, bitter, and spicy, truly unique. It's also won international awards, voted Best Organic Olive Oil. It turns out Marco, Fabio, and Gianluigi are official olive oil tasters. They make sure that olive oil produced locally meets the standards of Sardinia's unique PDO designation, an acronym from the EU meaning Protected Designation of Origin. We found this out when they took us to lunch after our site meeting. Marco demonstrated how to properly taste olive oil using the bottle on the table before us. I wish I had recorded it, but at the time, my hands were warming a paper cup of olive oil before sipping it into my mouth loudly with the proper aeration. Marco described the flavor as a combination of artichoke with notes of tomato plant leaves. I'm not sure if I ever would have come up with that, but once he said it, I realized that he had hit the flavor on the nose. After the wonderful lunch and buzzing on Vermentino, we thanked them profusely for their warm hospitality and conversation. The topic of olive oil history fills books, and the history is still being written. But as they say, all history is local. So that brings me back to the Tanca in Luras with Sotsastru and Anna Maria Corda. This tree was the tree of the year in Italy, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. It was a competition last year.
And then it was nominated for the European Tree of the Year, but didn't win.
It didn't win, no. I guess it was third. I don't remember how it came.
Yes,
yeah.
And that's how I learned about it.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the tree is being looked after by multiple groups, especially people from the University of Sassari.
Of course, since it's the university in Sassari, it's the agronomists. They are always checking that it's in good health.
It was they who put in the fence.
Since we started protecting it, I've never seen it so beautiful. The foliage is really, really beautiful now.
You really saw a response to the fence being built. The tree's happier.
I saw a difference because I grew up here. I grew up in this area. I grew up in Luras, so I saw it earlier, before it was fenced. I was one of the kids who, approached it and played also under it. But maybe it was a problem to grow new branches, new twigs. And there's a big difference. From here, you could see the trunk. You see, now you could not see it.
So when you were growing up, you could see the trunk from here, because now we can't see anything.
Exactly. When I was growing up, when I was a kid, we could approach this tree, we could play under it, and you could see the trunk. Yes, of course, because maybe for the presence of man, the presence of human people, inhibited the growth of other branches.
And probably the soil too is now protected.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you love most about it?
Wow. I love the country. And when I was a little kid, I was often in the country. I played a lot in the country. And I've always known as a big tree. I had no idea how it could be old. I like that, some people say trees have some energy, and gives you energy as a gift. So you breathe good. The oxygen is good here. I've worked in an office before. I work now also as a translator, and I worked with a computer. So
this is way better.
Yeah. I like it so much to be here, to talk to people, to talk about the country and the little animals. And I also love caterpillars. No, I don't love them, but...
Yes, the caterpillars on our arms right now. Well, grazie mille for meeting with me today to talk about Sotsastru.
Oh, thank you.
The great,
Tree?
the wild olive
It's
tree.
wild, yeah.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
And thank you for being here and to choose for choosing to get to know the story, the history of Sottsastrum. Thank you.
Grazie. Will the olive trees survive? With the efforts being taken, I'm optimistic they will. There's a saying in Sardu about olive tree longevity. Su olivu vivit cantu su patronu morit. The olive tree lives as long as its owner dies. I've come up with another saying. As the olive tree endures, so the Sardinian lives. Thank you, tree lovers, for joining me to learn about Sotsastru, the Great Patriarch olive tree of Luras, the Patriarch of Nature, or simply the wild olive. I hope all of my Italian and Sardinian pronunciations weren't too painful for native speakers. I'd like to offer a very warm thank you to Anna Maria Corda for hosting us at Olivastri Millenari de Luras and teaching us all about the famous tree. Also, the dedicated researchers at Agris were incredibly generous with their time as well. It was an honor to meet Marco Campus, Fabio Pires, Gianluigi Pili, and Emmanuel Colley on location in Monteferro and Oristano. The unusual and resonant music we've been listening to is played by Luigi Lai on the lanedas, an ancient Sardinian reed instrument consisting of 3 pipes. The Niraghi played them, as evidenced by a small bronze statuette of a man playing the lanedas found in the Archaeological Museum in Cagliari. Luigi Lai is a 93-year-old musician who has dedicated his life to playing this fascinating music and passing it on to later generations. I emailed with him, and he kindly gave permission to use his recordings for this episode. The vocals are contributed by a group called Sudilu, whose pastoral songs in the cantu a tenori tradition constitute some of the most ancient polyvocal music in the Mediterranean area. Thank you, Luigi and Sudilu, for sharing your music. The sensitive reading from the novel Elias Portolo was contributed by Manuela Buonanno, and thanks to Kevin Hauser for sharing his translation. The show's theme music is by Dee Lee. I'll post pictures of Sotsastru, the Olivastro de Tancamana, and our guests on Facebook and Instagram in the coming weeks. The show website is thisoldtree.show, where you can find more information in the show transcript. I'm Doug Still, and you've been listening to This Old Tree. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to This Old Tree. This Old Tree is sponsored by Schwartz Tree and Landscaping in Cranston, Rhode Island. Professional tree service, landscaping, and plant management. Visit schwartztreecare.com or call 401-941-4440.